Well, it's interesting. I wouldn't have chosen that verb, lure. Lure or courting.
Okay.
What I would choose is they are attracted by what we are doing.
There are two more former cabinet ministers, two steadfast long-term presences in the Liberal government who may be in line for other positions, and that could also trigger more by-elections and, again, really complicate the math here for Carney.
Over the last few months, the mainstream media has repeated one claim over and over, that Pierre Poilievre's leadership is solely to blame for two MPs crossing the floor to join Mark Carney's Liberals. Mark Carney himself pushed back on that narrative in a year-end interview, insisting the Liberals were absolutely not trying to entice sitting MPs to cross the floor. That denial came despite reporting around Tim Hodgson's role in courting Michael Maw for months, and in a recent public post by Conservative MP Scott Anderson raising further questions about what was really happening behind the scenes. But the storyline of Carney's caucus marching toward a majority took a really big hit yesterday. Chrystia Freeland announced that she will be resigning, and now new reports suggest as many as two more Liberal MPs may be preparing to vacate their seats as well, prompting a total of at least 3 by-elections in the next several months. Let's take a look.
The year finished with high political drama. 2 floor crossers.
In those cases, they came to us.
Carney personally helped seal the deals.
I met with them just at the end of what was a process.
Are you courting other Conservative MPs to push you over the edge?
Well, it's interesting. I wouldn't have chosen that verb, lure. Lure or courting.
Okay.
What I would choose is they are attracted by what we are doing.
So that was Mark Carney with Donna Friesian on Global, and he was trying to essentially say, "Oh, we're just doing such a phenomenal job that people are just attracted to what we're doing." Well, that's not what we've been hearing behind the scenes. That's not what Pierre Poilievre has been telling everybody, and that's not what was reported on about Tim Hodgson. So let's take a look at a little bit more of what's really happening behind the scenes. So this was published on December 15th. Many of you are no doubt already aware of this, but it's from CBC by way of the Canadian Press, and it says, Energy Minister says he's getting lots of inquiries about MPs crossing the floor. Sources say Tim Hodgson was involved in bringing Michael Maw over to the Liberals. Hodgson wouldn't comment on any role he played personally in courting Michael Maw, whose Markham-Unionville riding of North Toronto is next door to his own riding of Markham-Thornhill. Quote, our Prime Minister is a former businessman and a pragmatist. I'm a former businessman and a pragmatist. Michael Maw is a former businessman and a pragmatist, end quote, Hodgson said when asked if he had reached out to Maw. Quote, we all share a view that it is time to unite, not divide, and I'll let Michael speak for himself, end quote. Sources told CBC News that Tim Hodgson was involved in bringing Maw over. Maw met with Carney and Hodgson last Thursday afternoon, they said. Those sources, who were not authorized to speak publicly, said the cabinet minister befriended Maw in the late spring and early summer while attending events in Markham. And this is what we heard as well. So, to just lay it all out and be objective about this, it is not uncommon to see MPs from different parties at the same community events when their ridings are next to each other. We see that all the time in Hamilton, you'll see it all the time in Toronto, and you'll see this at varying communities around the country. And this is just because the demographics in their own ridings often go to the same community events, so you will see two MPs of different political parties, or the same parties if they're in neighboring ridings, at the same events. So that's nothing to really get uppity about. However, it is a little strange when you repeatedly see Tim Hodgson and Michael Maw sitting next to each other when we hear that they became fast friends and that Tim Hodgson was whispering in Michael Maw's ear. And it was interesting to see how this actually played out. And Tim Hodgson even himself had admitted at one point that he's had many conversations and he's become very good friends with Michael Maw over the last few months. I wonder how long that friendship is going to last now the objective has actually been achieved. So you can't say with a straight face that Tim Hodgson was not trying to court Michael Maw into coming over to the Liberal Party. So that's the first part. Here's the second part. Yesterday, Scott Anderson, who's the Member of Parliament for Vernon Lake County, Monashee, dropped a statement on Facebook, and it really caught everybody's attention. He says, "It's important for my constituents to know that I, like others, have been approached by the Liberals and asked to cross the floor to join them. The Liberal Party of Canada is pulling out all the stops to lure Conservative members of Parliament to cross the floor so they can have a majority and subject Canada to more years of economic and social malaise. With the complicity of the mainstream media, they've promoted the myth that there is some kind of movement to turf our leader, and it's because they are afraid of Pierre Poilievre. They'd prefer a milquetoast Conservative leader and not a fighter who stands up to their lies and omissions. To the Liberals who initiated this contact, let me say this. Your headlines scream about great nation-building projects, yet almost a year after getting parliamentary approval, there are no pipelines, no new mines, no energy corridor, and not one formal trade deal. Indeed, you haven't even bothered presenting plans because buried in the subtext below every headline are caveats that ensure nothing will ever be done. Simply put, you've done nothing but make empty promises, increase taxation, and throw billions away trying to entrench your power. What are you going to try to bribe the next Conservative MP with? If broken promises were the only issue, it would be bad enough. But I sit across from you every day and see what most Canadians can't see when they watch CPAC. I watch you laugh when Conservatives bring up the closed mills, the shuttered businesses, the seniors who have to choose between eating and rent. I watch your self-satisfied scoffs when we ask you to cut taxes and allow Canadians to flourish again. I see you sitting across the aisle in designer suits paid for by a job that's inflation-proof and safe, smirking at those who have to try to scrape a living out of the economic desert you've created. I watch you boast about your handouts, your rental housing that never seems to materialize, your leader who shows up a few minutes a month for part of question period before jetting off in search of more pointless headlines. And you have the gall to say that our pleading for the little guy is quote-unquote carping. I'm frankly disgusted. So no, I won't join your party. I have no intention of crossing the floor today, tomorrow, or ever, regardless of what you offer me. It would be a betrayal of my constituents, a betrayal of the office to which I have been elected, and a betrayal of my own personal core beliefs. It'll be a cold day in hell before I even consider betraying my constituents, and you should probably stop asking, because I will certainly advertise it every time you try. So first off, hats off to Scott Anderson. Seriously, that statement is a breath of fresh air. And it's really interesting because in many of the MPs that we've been talking to, they've been telling us as well about the fact that they've been courted or they've heard of people being courted. And not just once, repeatedly. And through people that have been so-called friends over the years, and they are just frankly getting tired of it and getting disgusted by it. So in our conversations over the break, we sat down with a few Conservatives and we said, listen, if it was us, we'd be putting this on blast. We would be naming every single person that has been reaching out and trying to court. And we'd be throwing that out there and issuing press releases to the media and saying, here you go. This is what's happening. And by the way, here's the proof. Here's all the screenshots. Here's the call logs. This is what's been happening. So for the Liberals to say, oh, it's not us, it's just disgruntled Conservatives that aren't happy with Pierre because they're coming across, it would completely destroy that narrative. And it would force the media to stop putting out this narrative of, oh, well, Pierre's the problem. And it would make them start asking the Liberals these questions. So I find it very, very refreshing that we see a post like this. And I hope there's more. I really do. Because sunlight is the best disinfectant for any corruption going on. And how much more corrupt can you get than the Liberals literally trying to buy a majority government through trying to engage in coercion, in bribery, whether it be, here's some money for your riding, or maybe there's a cabinet position, or maybe there's a parliamentary secretary position for you, or some other appointed position. Shine a light on it and show Canadians the difference between what the Conservatives stand for, which from what we've heard and what we've been told over the years is integrity, truth, and the rule of law, or the Liberals. Well, we already know what they've been standing for over the last couple of years, which is corruption, self-aggrandizement, self-enrichment, and doing whatever it takes to stay in power. That's what I encourage any of these Conservative MPs to do that have been approached and repeatedly approached by these Liberals. And maybe it'll dissuade others who are considering any of these alleged offers to maybe say, you know what, maybe not today, because that sunlight drives all these people back into the shadows where they belong. So hats off to Scott Anderson for saying that, and the way he said it. That just came across as somebody as if he were speaking right into a microphone, and that's refreshing to see on social media. But here's the problem with Mark Carney, is this majority that he's been inching closer to may actually start slipping away, because we have the Turbon court challenge that's going to be reviewed in February. That could cause another by-election. So Liberals would drop down to 170. If they lose that seat, then it'll be a permanent 170. Christopher Freeland leaving, that drops it down to 169. And we have now heard rumors of 2 more that may be leaving within the next couple of months as well. Who are they?
We have seen and heard so much of Christopher Freeland over these past few years, playing a very prominent role in the Liberal government.
You are right that she has been steadfast in the Liberal government under the Trudeau years for many years. She was also a very close friend to Carney, a very close ally for him. And here is another senior MP who is now leaving the ranks of the Liberal government. It's also important to note that there is potentially some other math changing here too. There are lots of rumors, and we have been told through sources over the last few months that potentially Wilkinson, who's the former Environment Minister, Jonathan Wilkinson, may be leaving to get an ambassador type position overseas. Same with Bill Blair, the former defense minister. He had been rumored to be in line for a potential ambassador position as well. So there are 2 more former cabinet ministers, 2 steadfast long-term presences in the Liberal government who may be in line for other positions. And that could also trigger more by-elections and again, really complicate the math here for Carney.
So there you have it. Jonathan Wilkinson and Bill Blair, they may be leaving as well. Now, we've gotten a lot of questions about, will there be an election this year? What about confidence votes? And this is what we've talked about in a response when we say fragile majority. Because you have things like this happen fairly regularly in politics. When you have comfortable majorities or comfortable minorities, meaning you're not close to a majority, or you have a majority and it's quite secure, these things don't make a lot of headlines. But when you are this close, they do. So we may end up in a situation where Freeland, Blair, and Wilkinson, their ridings are all up for by-elections. And when that by-election goes on, it's important to note that that seat is vacant. So that means if Freeland's gone, Wilkinson's gone, and Blair's gone, that means that the Liberals are down 3 seats. And if you include the Terrebonne riding, that means they're down 4. So they're down to 167. By-elections usually run at least a couple of months. So what happens if that's the case? Well, that runs close to the end of the NDP leadership race, depending on when these resignations happen, opening up lots of opportunity to not need Elizabeth May, but she has said that she's not going to be voting confidence in the government anymore. But it opens up lots of opportunity for potential confidence votes for the government to fall this spring and send us to a spring election, which is what we've been hypothesizing since the end of the summer. So this is getting very interesting, folks. And I want to know, is the media going to start talking about the fact that you have these longtime Liberals that they were elected not even a year ago, and now they're leaving? Now they're leaving cabinet, they're leaving the caucus, they're leaving their seats. Is there a problem with Mark Carney's leadership?